When Kath came into the classroom, her body language seemed to reflect her bad mood. She had her hands on her hips, slammed down her file and barked out instructions for pupils to give out the whiteboards. As Kath became more anxious about getting the lesson off to a brisk start, there was an increasing sense of anger in her voice.
Shush, shush, shush!
Pupils, sensing her frustration, tried to settle quickly. They were eager to please her and had their homework books ready. When Kath noticed that Jason was in the early stages of conflict, she called to him across the room, rather than moving towards him to deal with the problem in a low-key way. She asked him to explain what was happening, but didn't accept his explanation. When Jason resolved the dispute in an aggressive way, Kath did not respond or intervene. Some pupils put their homework books on Kath's desk, and this seemed to add to her irritation. She challenged Anita by asking her a question that seemed designed to put her on the spot, as Kath already knew the answer.
Did I say anything about putting homework books on my desk?
No.
No, so pick it up and go and sit back down.
Kath then returned the homework books to pupils. She was anxious to get the lesson started, but this delayed it further. Kath startled Victoria when she threw the books down on her desk, and there was further disruption while pupils came to collect their books. As they got up and moved around, the noise level rose, and once again, Kath resorted to shouting. When Billy and Mrs. Latimer came in, Kath seemed annoyed by the interruption, and pupils performed his arrival routine in a guarded manner.
Hiya, Billy. Hi, David. Hi, Billy. Hi, Belinda.
Hi, Billy.
Hi, Mike.
At this point, Jason took the opportunity to deliver his report card, but Kath, it seemed, had already decided what the outcome of his report would be, and in her impatience to get started, dismissed Jason. After this, Kath appeared to scan the room looking for unwanted behaviour. She focused on Mike and asked him to sit up straight. Mike complied with his instruction, but his compliance was accompanied by some secondary behaviours, which he probably used to try and save face. Kath responded immediately with a detention. Peer support for what the class perceived as Mike's unjust treatment was led by Anita. Pupils were disturbed by Mike getting another detention and started to discuss it among themselves. Kath asserted herself as leader in the classroom through her comment to Anita.
Well, he's got another one now, hasn't he?
At this point, Kath set the conditions for starting the lesson. Pupils had to sit up straight, quietly with their eyes to the front. These are all perfectly reasonable conditions, but Kath's manner came across as unnecessary, unpleasant and aggressive, especially when pupils are already showing by their posture that they were ready to learn. Sadly, by now, much time had been wasted and morale was low.
Whose are these? Right, come and get them. I don't want them now.
But when are we supposed to hand them in, miss?
Quiet, 8PT!
Mrs. Latimer has spoken to Mr. Dillon, the Sanko, to get advice about how to work with Kath. She feels that Billy is finding it hard to cope in Kath's lessons, particularly when she shouts. I think other pupils probably find this difficult too. Once Kath is in a bad mood, she gets on the trail of anything that she sees as bad behaviour and won't let go. This can result in her complaining to the senior leadership team about problem classes, and a high number of pupils get sent out of her lessons. Kath sees this as being vigilant and taking a tough approach, but it's led to patchy attendance at her classes and a low level of motivation to learn. I'm concerned about the emotional climate in this classroom. I'm going to ask the admin team to pull off some specific data from the database about behaviour and attendance in this class and their projected Year 9 SATs levels, and then I'll discuss these with the head of department. I think Kath will be surprised and concerned about the impact of her style on the learning that is taking place in this class. She might find that it's the opposite of what she thinks is happening.
You two, whiteboards. Shush, shush, shush! Shut up and sit down!
Kath thinks her expectations of pupils' behaviour are clear to them, but she can be inconsistent in her approach. Her reactions can be unpredictable, and pupils can find this confusing.
But this is where I usually sit.
I'm not the slightest bit bothered where you usually sit. Just do it!
For example, after picking up the smallest of misdemeanours in other parts of the lesson, when Jason wrestled David out of his seat, Kath did not react at all.
What's that?
It's my homework, miss.
Did I say anything about putting homework books on my desk?
Similarly, in an effort to please Kath, some pupils tried to implement a homework routine borrowed from another lesson.
Whose are these?
This only succeeded in annoying her, which left pupils wondering what would have been the right thing to do. In the absence of a routine of her own, Kath could have thanked pupils for being so sensible, or alternatively, she could have explained what she would have liked them to do with their homework. Instead, she made this a point of conflict and delayed the start to her lesson as pupils came to take their books back. Kath did not try to hide her impatience as Billy and Mrs. Latimer arrived, adding, what Kath probably perceived, as a final and unnecessary delay to the start of the lesson. Pupils were unsure about supporting Billy in his greeting routine, for fear of how Kath might react. To their credit, they carried on. In Kath's lessons, pupils seem uncertain about carrying out even established school routines. Handing in report cards at the start of the lesson is a school routine that allows both teacher and pupil to be reminded of the pupil's targets. In this way, the teacher is prompted to monitor particular behaviours for learning.
Oh, well, I know what I'll be putting on that, don't I? On my desk.
When Jason attempted to do this, Kath's response was negative and unhelpful, and gave him no encouragement to motivate him to meet his targets in this lesson. Kath seemed unaware of the effect she had on the emotional climate for learning in this lesson. Pupils' anxiety levels were high. They were not entirely clear what they had to do to please her, although they still tried to do this. I got the impression that they felt a sense of injustice about their peers being treated unfairly, and looked to each other for support. Mrs. Latimer is concerned about Billy's progress in this class.
And I have complete quiet!